Well, apparently they don't have an AI. Come on. 5-year break-even inflation. There you go. This is for 5 years, but back March 2022, that number stood at 359. That was a little bit before Fed actually started seriously cutting the rates. So market was thinking if they don't do anything, inflation is going to be high. Now they're thinking it's uh, about 240. That's a little bit higher. That's one of the reasons Fed is not in a hurry to cut the rates yet, because Fed's target inflation rate is 2%. Not on the CPI itself, but it's on something called core personal consumption expenditures. But at least the direction of that gives you an idea. There's also something called 5-year forward, 5-year inflation rate. You basically calculate the average break-even inflation for 10 years, break-even inflation for 5 years, and you calculate the difference pretty much, and that's that number. This says, yes, break-even inflation over the next 5 years is 240, but the 5 years after that is about 224 for that period. That's one of the reasons market is not ready to assume that Fed is going to be aggressive in cutting rates, because even the 5-year forward, 5-year inflation is about a quarter point above Fed's target. When that thing hits about 2, you're going to see Fed dropping rates quite a bit, 2 or below. Let's talk about, these are simple little things, but we need to talk about them. Oh, by the way, I don't know if I posted for yours yet. I did those mini additional videos again. If I haven't posted yet for you, I'll do it right after the class. Watch those videos, please. I mean, don't watch if you don't want to. There is no requirement. But next year, I'm going to actually not put them on YouTube. I'm going to put them on Blackboard, because if I put a quiz in it, I can't put it on YouTube. I can embed a quiz in videos, and at the end of the video, I can ask you a very simple question that you can answer if you watch the video. And if you haven't, you're not going to get those points. Or if you simply let it play and just didn't watch, you're not going to be able to answer the question. I'm going to force you guys to watch those things. I don't know. One of the reasons I want to do that, they asked us to give proposals for the redevelopment of the online version of this class. Currently, I mean, it's not personal. The students that come out of those online classes know nothing. I'm serious. They come to my Finance 301. They can't do simple. I mean, I asked them to do a homework assignment where first they have to generate the cash flows from a portfolio for each month. Then I want them to calculate present value of those, but the interest rates for each month are different. They get it from a yield curve that they generated. They can't do it. Um, what did you learn in that class? At a minimum, they should have learned that. They haven't heard of capital budgeting, which is an essential thing in corporate finance. Let's see if they're going to pick mine. We're going to talk about taxable versus non-taxable bonds. Currently, treasury bonds, and bills, of course, are subject to federal income tax provided it is in a taxable account. If it is in your Roth IRA, doesn't matter. If it's in your regular IRA, at some point you're gonna pay for that, or if it's your regular account, you pay taxes on it. Subject to federal income tax, but no state income tax, independent of the state. If a bond is issued by a local authority, which means a state, city, state agencies. For example, the bonds issued by EKU are in that category. Okay, and these are called municipal bonds. Technically, the municipal refers to cities, but it's the generic name for that. And we affectionately call them the munis. They are not subject to federal income tax, and in the state that issued them. Sometimes states have agreements on double taxation. For example, state of Kentucky, I'm sorry, Commonwealth of Kentucky has an agreement with state of Michigan. If you bought a bond issued by state, anybody, any local agency in Michigan, you don't pay state income taxes in Kentucky, and vice versa. So those are sometimes called triple tax free. And we're going to look at after tax yields is equal to pre-tax yields times 1 minus marginal tax rate. For example, at my income, my marginal tax rate is going to be 22%. So if I bought a treasury bond in my taxable account and I made $1,000 in interest income, or let's say 436 pre-tax, and tax rate of 22%, then after tax would be 4.36 times 1 minus 22%. Yeah, 340. So effectively, I'm getting 3.41% or so. But if there is a muni bond that pays me 4%, even though it is less than treasuries in nominal terms or in pre-tax terms, I need to jump on that. But one thing that you need to think about the muni bonds, unlike treasury bonds, they can default. There was a famous default of the city of New York in 1970s. They went bankrupt and they defaulted on their municipal bonds. So there is the probability of default. But on average, typical muni is kind of AA rated, and AA spreads, let me show you roughly where they are. Again, for each individual bond, you need to check the rating. AA, come on, option adjusted spread. It's about 56 basis points. So as long as the yield of the muni is above 356 on a default adjusted basis, they're kind of the same, right? Let's talk about one more numerical thing before we talk about the yield curves. Dirty and clean bond prices. and accrued interest. It sounded like one of the Sergio Leone movies, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. You guys ever watch that movie? It is the classic spaghetti western. Do you know why they call it the spaghetti western? Because the director was Italian, the guy who did the music was Italian, Ennio Morricone, and that's classic Clint Eastwood. Oof. It was in 1956. He actually was good looking those days, and before he turned Republican. As you know, I'm a bleeding heart Pinko comedy, so. But he's a great actor and a director. Don't get me wrong. And just because he's a Republican doesn't mean I don't appreciate his work. That $1 Million Baby movie, I mean, it made me cry. I cry easily in movies. I may not show that, but I do, especially if I'm by myself. I don't cry in front of my girlfriend. No, thank you. Uh, unlike stocks, the bonds do not trade in an organized exchange, right? They trade what we call over the counter. So if, as a person, you wanted to buy a bond, you go to your bank or your financial institutions and tell them, I want to buy that bond. What is the price? They're going to give you a bid and they're going to give an offer. When a dealer gives you a bid and offer, that means they are willing to buy that bond at that bid price. They're bidding for it, and they're willing to sell it to you at the ask price. So if you're going to buy, you're going to buy it at the asking price, just like you're buying a house. I mean, you can obviously bargain, but the first offer is asking price is $600,000. Unless you're going to bargain, you're going to have to pay that. But you can make a counter offer, 550. Sometimes they accept it. All right.